G'day punters, welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm of course your host Walley, joined as always by my good mate Harro. How are you, mate?
Very well, thanks, Walley, and it's good to see you once again, mate.
Yeah, mate. Now, mate, we're going to get stuck in. We've got, I'd love to say we've got a full slate, but it's Easter weekend and we've still got buys, which is hilarious to me. But before we get into the games, before we get into some of my takes, we'll start where we always start, which is really important, which was the highlights and lowlights of last week on the punt. Talk to us.
Yep, well, I said last week that we just love tipping up an underdog to win or at the line. And last week, our underdog that got up for us was West Coast. I said you'd have to be a brave man to tip West Coast, but I was willing to do it. And I felt like I read that one like a book, Wally. And they paid $4.35 or plus 26.5. So that's the highlight for me. There was a few other good ones there too, Wally. We said that the Roos versus Dons could be a low-scoring one, and if you followed the cues in that, the under 150 paid $10, mate. A few players, look, your favourite player, Wally, who I tipped up last week, Nick Dacos to get 30+. He did that easily with 36. Whitfield, we also liked him as well. We liked the Lions at the line. The under total points in the Cats versus Crows, so plenty of things to like there, mate.
There you go. And where there's highlights, there's usually lowlights. Not as many as the highlights, which is good, and it's been the case all season. But what do you reckon we just missed on?
So the best bet, which we're now 2-2. So the previous week, the best bet won by half a point. This week it lost by half a point. There was the over 177 or 178.5 in the Blues versus D's, and obviously the score made up at 177. So tough on that. Yeah. Mate, there was a really tough beat as well in this one. We had North to win by 2 goals or more. Of course, they won by 12 points, conceding the last 4 goals of the game.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that. Like I tuned out. I was at a 40th, right? So I had other things going on. Didn't really care. And if I was at home, I probably would have watched it for as a punter's interest. But I just was checking. I'm like, okay, cool. That's home. Didn't say it, didn't verbalise it because I don't go the early crow verbally. But in my head, the punting gods knew that I went the early crow. And that's what happened. Yeah, there was a couple of the over 177. That was weird because there was lines everywhere. I had mates saying, got it, didn't get it. And everyone had lines between 175, 176, all the way up to 180. So we just needed one more goal for the good guys, but we didn't get it. But I know that some people at least got the cash, which is something, Harro. That is something.
Yeah, I mean, right. I know personally I had some of my bets were like at 174.5 and stuff, so some of them won, but really I'm talking to the best bet there. And so obviously I had some at the 178 as well.
Yeah, it was so close. But yeah, as I say, we live by the sword, die by the sword. It's whatever. Last week we got it by a point. This week we missed by a point. Whatever it is on the show, that is the best bet. We call it out. All right. Ins and outs. We're back this week at the selection table. I'm going to start with the ins. This is an easy one. 9:30 a.m. games for the Eagles. Let's get them in. Let's get them playing at 9:30 a.m. local time every week. That was the time this game went to air in the West. People got up and they were having a coffee and a croissant watching their team play footy. People were in their dressing gowns watching the Eagles go around. I found out later that the Eagles actually requested this because they wanted to get home. So they didn't want to late a game. They wanted to be able to get home, do their recovery at home and all of that. So that was the understanding, hence the ridiculousness of the schedule. But, mate, just play all their games as breakfast games out west. It works for them. Next in, I've already got my fun teams to watch for the year, Harry.
Their first quarter, they played like they'd just woken up.
That's the point. It took them a while, but they did enough. It was literally like I used to play footy at 9:20 kickoff. Arrow, I know what it's about, believe me. I used to play the 9:30 Doona Dodger football. Don't worry about that. All right, next in is fun teams to watch. I'm wrapped with some of these fun teams. The D's are in this mix. The Eagles are in this mix. And I'm going to make a prediction. Within a few weeks, Richmond will be in this mix. I feel like they've shown a little bit. They're showing more intent and more pressure than they did last year. We spoke about Richmond last year, and the frustration for Richmond fans was that the two things you can control are your intensity or pressure and your tackling when you don't have the ball. And that were the two things that are like 17th and 18th in the league. The pressure's going up. The intensity's going up a little bit. There's some exciting players. I think they'll come in, but the D's and the Eagles at the moment, they're my fun teams to watch. The caveat is fun teams to watch that I don't think are going to threaten the flag, because I don't want to watch a Geelong or a Western Bulldogs or a Sydney or a Gold Coast just lighting it up, because I know we're going to have to beat them. So I'll caveat that. Fun teams to watch that I'm not threatened by. Last one. This is the 2 weeks we dream about. Easter football into gather round. This is the best 2 weeks of footy in the regular season. As good as Anzac Day is, I get it. This is the best 2 weeks, because the fact they're coming together like this, you get a slate of cool games finished with Easter Monday, which everybody, whether you're a Cats fan, Hawks fan, or a neutral fan, we know it's usually one of the better games of the year, and they genuinely fucking hate each other, which I love, me included. And then you go into gather round, which is just, they're not the best games, but it's just the best weekend of footy. So they're all my ins for the week, Harro. Where there's ins,
love it, Wally.
There's outs. All right, so the first out, I think, and you can chime in on this, Harro, is the total over points trend already finished for the year? Is that out? Are we over it? Because only one game went over this weekend? Yeah,
I think it was one over this week, and and then we had more go under than over the week before. So, yeah, it's you got to be, if you can't be taking the big high lines really without some real certainty.
Yep. So that is out. Now, another out. I can't go a week without mentioning the AFL. Mid-season rule changes, they're an out for me. But not only that, this is not just even mid-season. We're 4 rounds in. They have added a rule change to the out-of-bounds rule that they changed pre-season. They've already done that. So that's like me getting up in the morning and going, I put my hat on. Do you know what, Harro? Fuck it. I'm going to put another hat on just to make sure that everybody knows that I'm wearing a hat, because I'm going to wear 2 hats. That's what they did. They've just put a hat on a hat, because this is another rule change on a brand new rule change. At least let it breathe, for crying out loud. So that obviously annoyed me, but that's out of my system now. It's all positivity moving forward. They're my ins and outs for the week, Harro.
Beautiful, Wally. Love it, mate.
All right, let's get into some questions before we hit up the games. All right, man, the Dish King. Rising star market. He goes, I've got Smith, Dersma, and Shanahan in that order, but the second and third shorter than the odds. Basically, he's having a look at the odds in this. He's saying they're in that order. How would you price these on what you've seen? It's so hard this early, right? It's very, very hard this early to do the rising star. But I'll give you the live market is Smith is $1.90, Dersma is $3.75, and Shanahan is $26. Is Shanahan overs at $26?
I haven't had a good enough look at him, actually. Everybody's raving about him. I haven't got to really know him so well, but it definitely looks to me like Jagger's got some competition, doesn't he? Because it didn't look like that before. It kind of looked like it was just Jagger, really. But there's some other guys really starting to put their names up. I do like the look of Dersma, and he's obviously, there's not much of him, but he has a crack, that's for sure. So there's other guys in here like Grill. I mean, the few times I've seen him, he's looked excellent too. So look, I think it's actually, I think there's a lot to play out in this one, Wally. I probably don't like anything particular in the market right now, but I think it's one to watch, isn't it?
Yep. And don't forget as well, we've seen this before. These are young bodies, so injuries can happen. We have seen who was it? Sam Darcy that was short price front runner and then got injured.
He got suspended. I think. Was it Harley Reid?
What?
No, Matt Rao actually was one. He got really short and got suspended.
Years ago,
got injured.
I thought did it happen to Harley Reid?
I'm not sure about Reid. Definitely happened to Rao.
Yeah, I know it happened a couple of years ago as well. Somebody at the top end of the market got injured, and it was sort of, this was a bit of a question without notice. But my point is, if you like Grill or Shanahan, you're getting over $20 to find out. I'm with you. I wouldn't be launching into Jagger at $1.90 or Dersma at $3.75, but over $20 for a speculative bet, it's not a bad option. Not a bad option. All right, next question. Some trends seem so obvious in hindsight. What process do you use to determine if a pattern is a trend or just coincidence? It's an interesting
that's
question.
A great
Harro.
question. Yeah, well, obviously there's the people who have access to Bet Sniper. Shout out Bet Sniper. The defense versus position tool on Bet Sniper is great for identifying trends and whatnot. And then I like to look at the game style of sides as well. And if it's working, they're going to continue with that system. So, there's been a few ones early that we've seen. The Doggies, they're letting backmen get quite a lot of the footy. They're really, they're pushing back and allowing that space for the chip around through the back line, and it's working for them. So it's probably going to continue. So there's sort of two parts to it, looking at the data and then trying to analyse the game style and work out how that's going to play into disposals or whatnot on any one line, so to speak. But then there's trends in all sorts of parts of the game too. Like, it's pretty hard to deny that there's not a big trend for Carlton not being able to score in second halves, or getting overrun in second halves. And at the moment, there's a bit of a trend developing about West Coast in first quarters. And teams are going to be working on these things to try and overcome them. But some things are happening for reasons. And, and look, you can – the data tells the truth at the end of the day, doesn't it? So, you've just got to put your study hat on and do the work, and there's plenty out there to find.
Good shout, Harro. Next one, do we ever bet on the VFL? If not, why? Too degenerate? Well, it's not a problem for me. Too unpredictable, too few markets. I mean, you'd have to watch it the same way you watch AFL. You'd need the same level of data and you'd need the same markets. And I don't think they even do disposals and stuff in it, do they?
No, but I have had a lot of success betting on the VFL in previous years. I haven't bet on it for a couple of years, but going back, I think it was 2-3 seasons ago, I was having a bit of a crack at it. And it was very easy if you can follow the ins and outs in the teams and follow the form. It's, quite good. But obviously you can't get, good amounts on and you start betting on the VFL, you're putting your accounts at risk of getting sort of shut down if you have a couple of good wins and things like that. So at the end of the day, for me, it probably wasn't really worth it. But if you follow the team ins and outs and follow the form, you can win easily on the VFL.
And would you say, Harry, but it's got to be, that would have to be, that would just be like head-to-head lines, wouldn't it? You wouldn't be betting anything outside of that.
Line. Yep,
great.
Head-to-head and line.
Next. Do you stake sides total bets higher than your player bets, or is it dependent on confidence level on that certain bet? I think that we've spoken about this before. The bigger the edge you think you have over the bookie, the bigger your bet. The more confident you are, the bigger the bet. It doesn't matter what the market is. Is that just that simple, right?
That's true, but as you try and scale up, you can only really get bigger amounts on the bigger markets and the higher liquid markets. So, if you're ever trying to scale your punting up a level, then you'll have to be able to win in the head-to-head line total points in those markets.
Yep. Absolutely. Good stuff. At the start of each week, what do you look at first to get a gauge of which markets players you'll be betting into? This is an interesting one, Harro. What is your starting point when you're going to do the form?
I always just my very first thing I do is I set my own lines just intuitively without looking at what the bookmakers have done. And then if any of those are way out, then I think I'll start focusing in on those games first. And then, outside of that, I just sort of start going through each game, working out, is this team, if depending on whether I find a bet on the match line or the head or the total points, they're kind of the first two things I look at. Then I start looking at, all right, how's this team conceding disposals? Are they conceding high? How are they getting their disposals? Are they getting them high? Are they conceding or getting a high numbers of marks, or is it a handball game? Looking at how that's going to relate to their opposition. And you start just going deep on every game basically and they're kind of the starting points. And I will put more time into games, where I feel like I've got a lot more confidence. So, like last year, I was struggling on Brisbane games. I mean, they were just not conceding many disposals. They were winning when they had to win, but only just sort of doing the job and then putting the cue in the rack, and I was finding their games difficult to bet in. So I started putting a little bit less time into those types of games. On the flip side, I was doing well on Collingwood games, and I was reading them really well and how they sort of give up disposals to the opposition or goals or whatnot, and so I was putting more time into them. At the moment, I think my favourite teams at the moment, their games to bet on are like the teams that are having high disposal and high scoring games. So like the Demons would fit into that category, probably Richmond, the Suns. There's heaps. Still the Pies, the Saints, all of those teams, their games seem to be really good to bet in right now.
Okay, very good, Harro. Next one, I don't know if it'll be quite this high. Is there any bets the bookies have at the moment with the Western Bulldogs to score 180, 200 plus points? I don't know if you'll be able to get a line that big, but you could just go to all the books. I think that you tab sports bet. The big boys will be the ones that offer the most amount of individual lines in terms of an individual team to have over whatever the points. But when we come to this game, I'll be interested, Harro, because I genuinely believe that if they want to, they'll win this game by triple figures. It's just how the Western. I don't think Essendon could park the bus and stop them. I think that they're just useless from what I saw on. Like, I know they had that little bit at the end last week, but what they're doing and what I've seen and how good the Dogs are and how important percentage is with such an even top 10 teams in the comp, I think they're going to smoke them. But we'll talk more about them when we come to that. Do you ever high disposal across different games where there is an edge? Example, Pies give up a lot to wingers, so Berry, Bond. Yeah, so basically, if we think that – we've spoken about this before, Harro. If we think St Kilda is giving away a lot of ball to defensive ball users, then you'll look at multiple defensive ball users. If you think if there's a team giving away ball to midfielders, you look at that, high half forwards. The bigger question is, when you find that trend, do you then throw them all into a multi?
Within the same game sort of thing or across separate games. Yeah, the ones I love the most, Wally, are where teams just use the four midfielders. It's just a really tight rotation between four blokes. And then you get them playing a team that, like Richmond or something, that concedes a lot to midfielders, and you just go bang, you have them all to get 25, have them to get 25, 30, all that sort of stuff. That's a strategy that's paid off really well over time. And then one thing I like doing is across the whole round, you could do the really high hit rate players. So you could there'd be a bunch of them. You can pick a bunch of guys across the whole round that have got a really high hit rate at a 15 or at a 20 or at wherever, and create a multi out of that as well. That often works quite well. And that's what a lot of the trains that I kind of put up, a lot of those, that's kind of the thinking, apart from how they give up disposals to the opposition, is just having all these high hit rate players. Plenty of different ways you can do it. But, if you are looking for those types of reads, it's gonna push you in the right direction.
All right, nice one, Harro. Okay, next question here, and I think we're just about done. Actually, a follow-up there that was asked in this was Tom Sparrow getting 70% CBAs. Do we think that'll continue? Excuse me. I in particular at 20 plus this weekend. And do we think that Bolton's role at Freo with such a high disposal, do you have an opinion on either of those players and if we see them continuing in these roles?
I mean, I'd be a little bit careful with Bolton. I looked at backing him on the weekend and his odds were like really short. And you got to think that he's had two opponents that line up just beautifully for his role.
Okay.
So I don't think we're going to continue to see Bolton getting 30-plus disposals because he's going to get tougher matchups and things like that. And he's also they've got other guys that they can run through there. If they're ever struggling to kick goals, he'll be pushed back deep forward and these types of things. So the Sparrow one, I wish I had been onto that because, he's obviously had a big role change there and it's worked really well. So I think the cue with that one was Rivers going out of the side and that just opened up a spot for Sparrow. But, I wasn't able to pick up on that one. So, obviously you got to wait for teams to be announced and then it's just going through them and working out what way you think they're going to go from there.
Yep, very good. All right, mate. Let's get stuck into it. Now it's time to actually, do you know what? One last one, sorry. Anthony's hit us up with the scrapping of the sub rule, do you think time on ground is reduced for a lot of players or is it just the players I've backed? I get where he's saying that. Is that what we're thinking? Is there a genuine reduction? Because now you have 5 on the bench and you got more rotations. I don't know if it'd be a huge amount different, but I mean, logically, it suggests that players will play less time on the ground.
Well, they still only have the 80 rotations. So, although it's more of a strategy thing, I think, Wally, rather than every player taking an extra little bit of time, I think we're still seeing all the gun players playing, near enough to their full game time that they've been used to playing. But definitely like the role players and stuff and anyone that's sort of maybe not 100% fit or anything like that, they can still actually play now, but just with the idea that they're probably going to be on a bit lower game time. But I think all your guns and whatnot, they're not getting any extra rest. It's all pretty standard for them.
And we saw Pendles early in the season playing like 50% game time in a game and having over 20. Horn Francis had 70% game time, had over 20. So like some are still getting plenty of it. Anyway, let's get into the footy. We kick off on Thursday night with Brisbane v Collingwood. Plenty of great contests between these two over the years. Brisbane's $1.42 back at home. They've got their first win. They look really good against the Saints late. They showed they got gears. They are the benchmark of the competition. Collingwood's $3.11. Just again, shout out to Bet Sniper. The odds that we present here for the head-to-heads are through Bet Sniper. And when we record on a Wednesday at 9 a.m., they are the best odds available. You use their odds comparison tool, you get it. And then with the lines, we select whoever you voted for in the multi the week before. It was Sportsbet last week, so the Sportsbet lines. The line's 16.5. So that's just to give clarity around where the odds come from. Harro, how do we see this one unfolding, mate?
Yeah, well, when I sort of looked at this game, the first thing that came to my mind was this is a bit of a repeat of last year, whereby these two teams played this corresponding sort of match with the Lions off a 5-day break. But the timing of this is all a little bit different. And obviously the Pies, they thrashed the Lions last year with the Lions off the 5-day break. But I just want to explain the difference this time around. So last time the Lions, they had this 5-day break into the Pies, they hadn't had a bye up until this point of the season, where here they're coming off a bye, then St Kilda, and then playing the Pies off a 5-day break. It's actually only 2 games in 20 days. When they played the Pies off the 5-day break last time, they'd actually played in 35-degree heat in Adelaide at Gather Round the 5 days before. And the Pies had actually had a night game off a 6-day break before, and they'd had a bye. So it was a big advantage last time, the Pies, and they don't get that advantage here. So I'm not expecting the Lions to come out in any sort of sluggishness or whatnot, like what they did show when they played the Pies in this corresponding game last year. I'm not really rating the Pies' form, too highly. We said on the podcast last week, we kind of lean to the Giants or whatnot. But then when the teams came out, and I got to have a good look at them, and things often do change when the teams come out, Wally. And I did put this on X. I'm actually backing the Pies at the line now, and that obviously paid off nicely. But where I got to was I realised how depleted the Giants were. I was kind of thinking when we did our preview last week, they were bringing back Cadman, Bedford, and a couple other guys who I can't remember, but that didn't happen. And the Pies were full strength, minus Bobby Hill. I mean, there's not many teams running around right now with completely full strength minus Bobby Hill. And so I kind of came to the realisation that, yeah, I like the Pies. But a lot of it was based off how bad the Giants are right now, or just how depleted they are. So it means I'm really not rating the Pies form, and they didn't really do a job on them either. I watched both of the games too, and I actually was quite impressed with the Lions. Had a bet on them as well, and they just overwhelmed St Kilda. You know, the longer the game went, their pressure just doesn't die down, and they're so strong through that midfield, and eventually they were able to overwhelm them. I do see this as a bit of a mismatch in the midfield as well. Like the Lions, that's a big strength of theirs, and for me, the Pies midfield is kind of lacking in comparison to the Lions. So I'm quite keen on the Lions, mate. We saw the prelim last year, the last time these two sides met. They won this by 29 points, the Lions. They get back Berry and Neil from that side that beat the Pies at the MCG by 29 points. And now this game moves up to the Gabba, and they've got everything to gain out of winning this, the Lions, and so I think that they'll do that, and I think that they'll cover the 16.5 as well. Now, moving on from that, there are a few good trends right now. The defensive ball users versus the Pies. So we saw it again on the weekend. Whitfield 39, Ash 28. The week before it was Laird 25, Malera 34. The week before that it was Sinclair 35. So who is that type of player for the Lions? Look, it's Zorko, isn't it? He's had the 31, the 28, and the 30. You're getting him at 28.5 here. But there's also a couple other good ones down there as well, Walley, for the Lions. And they do like to chip the ball around down there when they're given the opportunity. So, have a look into all their halfbacks.
So Fletcher, would you consider?
Yeah, Fletcher, he's a gun. I like him. There's also the other guy who I really like. I've forgotten his name. I'll have a quick look for you. Wilmot. He had a quiet game on the weekend, but most of his stuff before that's been really good. So, yeah. Will Ashcroft's the other one. He's just a gun, in my opinion, Walley, and he got the job done on the weekend. He came home with a wet sail, mate, and him over 27.5. Yeah, he came from nowhere, but it shows that he doesn't stop, mate. He goes all day, and we saw the GWS mids really have a fill up against the Pies as well, with Callahan having 35 and Oliver 37. So, I like Will Ashcroft too, mate, if we're looking to have a couple of player bets.
Nice, mate. All right, let's move on to the next game. Good Friday football. We've got 2 games this year on Good Friday. We'll start with North Melbourne Carlton. We spoke about this. We spoke about this yesterday, and I'm thinking about what you said. I think you're right. Tristan Xerri may be the biggest out any team could have. I know how big Max is to Melbourne. I know how important Nank was to Richmond, but I think you're right. Like, there is not. I'm not saying he's the best player in the league, but there is no more important player to their side than Xerri, and that has tipped the scales in Carlton's favour, especially with the market. So north of $2.30, Carlton are $1.65, and the line is 7.5. If Xerri was playing, they would be the favourites in this game. Yeah, do we think?
I think it would be pretty much even money. So look, the Blues are close enough to full strength here. Like, really, they might have Harry Dean missing, but they can replace him with a Nick Haynes or something. It's much the same. But the Rose Xerri is just such a big out. I had a look at what they did in the 3 games where Xerri was missing last year, and they lost to the Saints by 9 points. They lost to the Cats by 101 points, and they lost to the Swannies by 31 points. And look, the Saints was a game they would have considered winnable. Obviously, the Cats, that's a terrible result. The Swans weren't going that well when they beat them by 31 points. They probably disappointed with that. So He does look like he's a big out, and especially with the way the Blues play, heavy clearance sort of dominating side, I feel like it's a bit of it's a bad one for the Roos to be missing him. And I also think, if the Blues, if you line them all up against the wall and it said, Carlton, you're allowed to remove one player here, I think it would be Cherry. So, it does bring Carlton right back into this one, I think. And it probably, their backs to the wall, they've shown some good signs, Carlton, at the same time that they've actually they've just been horrible in the same game so many times. It's bizarre how this is happening. But, look, I probably can't find a bet here, Wally, on the line or who's going to win the game. But I do like the under 177.5. We know that North want to defend better this year, and Carlton, we know that they're obviously got a coach under a lot of pressure, that defence is going to make up a big part of their approach here. And they can go long periods, Carlton games, with little scoring when they get into a bit of a defensive mode. So I think the under 177.5 is probably my favourite bet that I could find in this game. I wanted to mention Finn O'Sullivan, mate, how good he's going at the moment. He could get a great matchup on his cousin Sam Walsh this week. Not really from a betting point of view, but just something that we would love to see.
A bit of fun.
Yeah, and he's been fantastic so far. So really enjoying his watching his game. There will be some more angles, Wally. I know at the moment the Roos are conceding really low disposals and their games are going quite low in general, disposal-wise. So it is one to probably be quite selective with, and I'll try and find some player bets maybe closer to the game.
Yep, and as we always say, we're on Instagram, we're on X, Footy FG Pod. Check us out. That's where we put the later information if there's something closer to the jump that we like. All right, next game is Adelaide Fremantle. Adelaide are $1.83. Fremantle are $2.10. The line's 2.5. I like the Dockers here. I don't know about you, Harris. I'm really keen on your thoughts, but I thought double your money on the Dockers when we think a lot of them. And Adelaide haven't been too bad so far starting, but I just think Freo a really good side. What do we think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you actually, Wally. I've watched all the Crows games so far, and they just look a little bit off the pace that they were early last year. And they do have a few blokes missing. I think that the result against Geelong really flattered them. I think it was 8 points in the end, but Geelong appeared to be like in control of that game pretty much the whole night. So, and I think actually the expected scores had Geelong by a decent margin, and that probably is the way that the game felt as well. And you're just looking at through a few of the stats, the Cats had 80 more disposals, 22 more inside 50s. They won clearances, contested possession, and one big one was they won the tackle count inside forward 50, 25-4. And I do think this is a bit of a problem for the Crows. They don't have a lot of good pressure players in their forward line. So that's something for you to just keep an eye on. It's not a good week either for the Crows to be down on key defender stocks. I know that they've lost their main key defender to concussion. They already had Keane, who was probably their mainstay fullback from last year. He's also out, and now they have to play against big Josh Tracy, who I am loving his work at the moment, Wally. With also, he's got some other blokes up there that are pretty handy as well with Voss and Amos. So there's going to be a fair bit to hold back. Shai Bolton, we mentioned him before. He's absolutely flying. Rankin was really well held by Mullen, wasn't he? And so it's going to be interesting to see if he can have a bit of a bounce back game here. He's obviously probably not going to get the same amount of attention this week. But, we've been trying to tip an underdog each week, and we've been having success with it. And this week it is Freo as the underdog tip, Wally. So I'm pretty keen on him. A couple other points to mention here is just leave Josh Rochelle in the midfield. He looked fantastic in there against the Cats. And
I did.
A side that was beaten, mostly well beaten. He was in the coaches' votes, and he played a great game. So I think even if Dawson comes back, they need to drop one of Saligo, Peatling or Berry and keep Rochelle playing that midfield role, because I think there's a lot that he adds to that midfield. But with this midfield as well, they are conceding, tons of disposals to the oppo in that sort of area of the ground. We saw Smith have 40 in there on the weekend. Bont had 30 with Richards 29 and Dacos 33. And so the bloke here that sort of it lines up for is probably Sarong to get his 30 again this week, mate.
Yep, very good, mate. I like that a lot. Would you consider Sarong, Brayshaw, 25-30, sort of that sort of double, or both 30, or you just rather focus on Sarong?
Brayshaw's been a bit up and down this season. So he had a shocker round one. He put in a blinder in round two, and then he went missing a bit on the weekend. So
it's good.
I'm not too sure what's going on with his role. He might be rotating a little bit or doing more defensive work. I'm not too sure, but Sarong's going to be just hunting the footy. So he's probably the guy I'd focus on.
All right, we'll move into Melbourne v the Gold Coast. Oh, sorry, I've missed a game. How could I forget? The team that I said were exciting. West Coast, Sydney, Harro. It's all right, we'll edit that out. Head-to-head, West Coast, Sydney. West Coast are $4.60. Sydney are $1.24. The line is 28.5. West Coast have been good. This is different gravy. This is a completely different matchup. This is not Port Adelaide. This is not North Melbourne. How are they going to go when they play against a genuine top four side, Harro?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed West Coast work so far. Obviously, we've backed them with great success on the weekend, so that was fantastic. They do have a couple of bad outs this week. Definitely Elliot Yeo, he's been quite influential for them, and they need all of their good leaders out there to keep them going, but he misses this week. Another guy who misses is maybe not a big name or whatnot, but he's done a pretty good role in the first three games, and it's Dev Robertson. As a role player, he's been quite good for them and quite important, so they will miss him. They are also now, off a 6-day break, coming up against a fully fresh and refreshed Swan side who I really rate, really highly. And you look at who the oppo that the West Coast have played so far. I think Port, I mentioned last week, they're going to be a bottom six side for sure. North also look like a bottom six side. The one team they played that aren't looking like a bottom six side is the Gold Coast. They lost by 10 goals. So there's still a big gap there, Wally, between West Coast, even though they're improving, and these top 4 to 6. And I'm straight out happy to back Swannies, mate, at the 26.5. If the line's still there, I think it is.
Right.
Very happy with that. I think the Swans will overwhelm them, and it's just a big step up here for West Coast. There's a few other bets I like in here, Wally. The over 181.5. When you look at both teams, they've put together 6 games between them. 5 of the 6 have made up over that 181.5. And look, West Coast, their latest game, it was 52 scoring shots. It probably should have gone even higher. The Swannies, we know that they're really trying to score. I also think, Wally, that this is a good game to look at Charlie Curnow. He's $2 to kick 3. And we look at what Georgiades and Whitlock did. Between them, they had 9 shots on goal, and that's Port Adelaide. So I think Charlie's time's going to come. I know he's had a couple of quiet games so far. I think he's kicked 3 in one of them, and he's missed out a couple of times. So I'm pretty keen on Charlie, mate. The other guy who I've found is Harley Reid. His line is 23.5. He's had some pretty good matchups so far, Wally, and he's managed the 23, the 30, and the 21. But I think that he's going to find things a little bit tougher with a row bottom running around with him, making sure he doesn't do too much damage here. And so I think that Harley Reid under the 23.5 is a good area too.
Yeah, now I saw Charlie in the flesh, the Hawthorn Sydney game, and he started well, and then they made the change, Battle of Brass. But like, Hawthorn's got the best backline in the comp. I think we can agree with that, especially against Talls. I think he had 4 scoring shots in that game, and he kicked 2-2, I think it was, from memory, Harris. So he's still got opportunities. So it's not like he's going completely he's not completely lost there. And in this matchup, I think it's a good shout. So we've got 3+, and then you could have a ladder around that, obviously, as well, Harro, if you can.
Yeah.
All right. Next game for us, Harro, is the game I nearly jumped to. Melbourne Gold Coast, the team that I said were very exciting. Gold Coast are obviously exciting to watch as well, but very, very good. Melbourne's 360, Gold Coast $1.37. The line's 20.5. I'm interested here, Harro. Melbourne have been all right, but Melbourne have beaten St Kilda and they've beaten Carlton. Again, this is just one of these teams that we think will finish in the bottom 8, playing a team that we think is going to finish in the top 4. So what do we think?
Well, it's a little bit hard to get a good read on the Suns because you look at who they've played and they haven't really played anyone yet. I mean, they played Geelong, but Geelong to their own...
They weren't ready.
They said that they weren't ready for that game, and so they didn't show up properly. So,
exactly.
Yeah, they haven't actually really played anyone, so we haven't got a really good line on where the Suns are. We know they're expected to be really good, but I'm not taking $1.33 against a side who hasn't really had to do anything yet. So I did like the 183.5 on the over. It's jumped up to 187.5 now. Look, it's just getting up to that sort of point where it's getting pretty high. But my initial thoughts were over 183. So a little bit tricky when the line moves like that. We don't want to be giving away too many points. So I'm not really too keen on the 21.5, the $1.33 or the 187.5. So I've had a look outside of that, and these games have been good for looking at the opposition's disposals. We've seen 3, I think, out of their 4 games make up. The opposition's got around that 400 plus, and even Carlton on the weekend, who went to sleep after half time, they still ended up with their 370 or something like that. So they're still pretty healthy, and it's the high half forwards, which is a strange one. It's not normally a position we associate with a lot of disposals, but last week I did pick out Elijah Hollins for the Blues, and he had 25, which is big for him, and he's in that kind of role. Murphy Reid for Freo, he also had the 24, and Max Hall had 26. These are all kind of similar players playing that role. Took Miller's the guy who's been, pushing up from the half forward line for the Suns. And even if he doesn't do that, well, he's just going to do a full game in the midfield. And so he's a guy I'm really happy to play his disposals here. He runs all day, does not stop this guy. There's, and he's very clean as well. If he gets his hands on the footy, he's going to get a disposal. It's funny watching this, Wally, when you're having your disposal bets. There's some guys who get their hands on the footy and they don't always get it away, and how frustrating it is.
Josh Dunkley holds the ball without disposal more than any. And do you know the other one that used to do it a bit was Viney?
Yeah, okay.
Because they just get in, they're so bullish, and they just get the ball and they don't want to surrender it. And they're doing the job for their team, but it's not ideal for us. But Dunkley and Viney, mate, I know this. I watch it and it does my head in. You're right. I don't remember that happening much with Miller. Miller's a jet. And what a win. You go, so okay, good. We've got a high half forward. They give away there. Worst case scenario, plays a full game in the midfield. Like it's gold.
Yeah. So really happy with him. There's a couple others to just sort of to consider based around this strategy. And it's Will Graham, who is actually a really good player. He's not a high disposal player so far in his career, but you're getting a really low line. His line's 12.5. All right. He is coming off 15, and he's a guy that they're going to be really trying to get him involved more. And I'm telling you, well, he's going to be a good player, this kid. So watch out for him. The other one is Leo Lombard. He only needs 14. All right. So these guys, their lines are set quite low. They're not high disposal players, but they get the right type of matchup here. So, I think they're the best areas to play in this one, Wally.
Nice.
Sorry, I've got some more here.
He was the opening round. Leo Lombard was opening round rising star, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say, mate?
I've got some more stuff I forgot about here.
There you go.
There's one guy I've picked up on for the Suns, and Dimmer is turning this guy into his new Nick Floston. So he had his Nick Floston at the Tigers. He wants another Nick Floston, obviously.
Yep.
And it's Bodie Ulwand. And he's going really well. I've loved his work so far. And he's had 19, 24, and 29. I think his line's 20 here. And in this role where he's doing a lot of intercepting, they're playing through him a lot. So that's good. The Suns also don't really tag. And Cozzy Pickett, you can't not be playing this guy basically as a full-time mid now. He's that good. And for him just to get 23 this week, I like that too, mate.
Love that, mate. Plenty of areas to play in there. A lot of areas too. And the other thing is the great areas for SGMs for those that like them. You can take some lower lines there, and there's the 10s, the 15s, the 20s, or the 9, 14, 19 if you can actually get on with the green machine, which most of us can't. Western Bulldogs, Essendon.
Wally, can I just hold you up for a sec? Sorry, mate. I think we've skipped the Tigers and Port.
Have we skipped Tigers and Port? We did.
Yeah.
I skipped Tigers and Port. Sorry, I'm whipping through them. Sorry, folks. I've missed Tigers and Port. Let's go back to it. You Richmond fans everywhere. Yeah, we're going well. I give Tigers enough. Let's be honest, Harro. Before I got on this call, I had a really bad experience with Ticketmaster and trying to secure NFL tickets where I had level 2, just near the end zone, front row, 4 tickets secured in a pre-sale, and then it booted me out. So I'm not myself at the moment, Harro. I wasn't going to bring it up, but it has rattled me to my core. So I'm going to need NFL tickets out there. I've got to call in favours. I've missed my window. So whoever's got them, give me a call. And I will pay too, just quietly. All right, Richmond, Port Adelaide, my Tiggies. You know I love the Tigs. $2.58, Port $1.58. The line's 11.5. I'm on the Tigers here. I just want to get that out there. I like them at the line, and I like them to win. I know they don't have Nank, but what have Port got in the same position? It's in Melbourne. Come on, Harro. Come with me on this.
Yeah, I can't get with you on that one, Wally. I'm sorry, mate. This was another one where my thoughts changed a fair bit after teams were out. And I had a look through Richmond's forward line. I don't think they had a forward in the team with 50 games experience last week against Freo. And Nank and Tom Lynch are just so important to this side. Tom holds the forward line together and Nank holds the midfield together. So they had the 13 players under 50 games experience. It was a very inexperienced side. And so it was one of those ones where after, before, and the weather changed as well. So these are all the things that punters, you listen to the show, but after that, consider teams, consider the weather, all this type of stuff, because it can change our thoughts around stuff. And that was the case definitely with the weather clearing up and Richmond naming a really weak side, let alone all of their back line and midfield still fine. Yep. But they literally had under 19 or under 21s type forward line. So that's going to just make it really hard to compete. And I think it showed. I think they kicked 6 goals for the game. They didn't have great connection down there. So it actually just leads me straight into my first bet. If the line set at 180 here, Wally, and I think that with the Richmond forward line being the way it is, and also their back line, so you've got a team here with a strong back line and a weak forward line, it's gonna be hard to see how this game goes over 180 points. In what should be a competitive game, both teams kind of at a similar sort of level. So that's my first bet. I really like that in this game. The other areas which I do like, Wally, I can't back the Tigers. I can't go with you there just based on that inexperience in their forward line and whatnot. Kane Farrell, mate, he had a big bump last week with Rosie being out of the team. He became that main DBU, defensive ball user, out of the back line. Tigers were number 1 to conceding to defensive ball users in 2025. How that probably will translate reasonably well to 2026, I would think. We got a little look at it last week with Clark getting 28 for Freo. So I'm pretty happy to play Farrell. His line's around 20. Sammy Laylor, mate, I've been watching this guy. He's got the whole world in front of him, I reckon. He's going to be a superstar. He's not getting big numbers yet, but he looks like he's just getting better and better. He's still getting enough midfield time, and he should like this matchup, Wally. And his line's just the 15.5. He's been over that 2 out of his 3 games already. The miss was a 15. So I'm pretty happy to have a look at him. The Tigers, they are, over the last sort of 30 games, conceding number 2 in the AFL to wingers. And Jace Burgoyne, he had 32 against the Tigers last time. His last 3 games, he's gone 17, 22 and 21, and his line's 19.5. I think in a good matchup, I'm happy to have a look at him too, mate.
Great. So under total points, Farrell, Laura, Burgoyne.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right, mate, we'll go to the game that I'd jumped to originally, which is the Dogs Essendon. The Dogs, the best price you can get them for is $1.03, but they're $1.01 pretty much everywhere. Essendon's $26. That would be the biggest upset from a betting perspective since betting has been on AFL, because I think the biggest ever is like $13 or something. That is how big of a gulf this is. The line is 72.5, and I don't think it's enough.
Yeah. Well, they did, they met each other twice last year, and the Dogs won by 93 and 91 in those 2 games. But I feel like the Bombers surely they were in a worse position last year than what they are now. They were depleted with injury last year.
I know the injuries, Harro, but the way they're playing, like they're not turning up to games. So they might have the names on the team sheet, but those same names aren't playing like we expect them to. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm trying to take my Hawthorn hat off when I talk about Essendon at the moment, because this is a punting show, not a Hawthorn podcast. I don't give a shit. When it comes to betting on the game, I don't give a shit about who they are. So I'm looking at this, though. For me, I just look at the Dogs and just go line by line, position to position, the mindset, everything about them. I feel so strongly that they are going to absolutely, and I'll use an old term I haven't used in a while, wallop the Bombers.
Yeah, they likely are going to, but the line is set for a walloping, isn't it?
It is.
It's like, okay, we all agree, and where we make money, Wally, is where we disagree with the market, really. And so, I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement that the Bombers will get a hammering here, but so is the market. And so I look at a 72.5 line, I'm looking at it and go, well, how far out could it be? I mean, what are you going to set a line at 90? I mean, is that going to happen?
No, probably
so
not.
How far out is it? I just don't. So I'm pretty agnostic on that 72.5. The Bombers, look, they might just come out and just stack the back line and go, look, we're up against it here. Do your best. So I don't know, but it's enough to put me off the 72.5. Well, anyway, so I've got to look outside of that, and there's some good areas to play in this, Wally, and we've seen the Dons so far. They've conceded 405 disposals to North, 407 to Port, 409 to the Hawks. So people asking, is there a trend? This is a trend. The Bombers are conceding tons of disposals to the Oppo, and we know the Doggies can really rack them up. I think last year they were the highest disposal side, or the second highest disposal side behind the Lions. So really, just be looking at your Dogs players. Be a little bit careful though with your guys that they might do a little bit of management with. Like we saw them do it with Libba last year. In these types of games, Libba would often get a little bit of management. I don't reckon they'll be managing the Bont. I just think that he needs that Brownlow.
Needs the Brownlow. They will not manage Bont.
So I'll be pretty confident.
3 votes this week. So they might manage a little bit. They're not going to manage an Ed Richards, are they?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. So, but then also it brings in the players that they're trying to develop, which is like the opposite. And so a guy like Fraser, he's $1.80 to get 20, and he's done that 3 out of 3 games, going 20, 20 and 24. And he's a bit of a player on the up as well, Wally. So I'll probably look to play some of these fringe players a little bit, as well as your absolute guns. But just be careful about your Libba types.
Okay.
And so, he's one. There's also Sanders. He knows how to find the footy. He's another one that you're only asking him to get around that 20 as well. The other guy, like if they do put up any markets, like I don't think Sean Darcy's about $6 to kick 6. He did that against them last year. Also, if they put up some markets about him kicking 7, 8, 9, 10, I think it's in play. They don't really have a matchup for him, and he's this type of player who's going to do it sooner or later, isn't he? He's going to kick a big bag sooner or later. So, you could look at that, or if you wanted to go the other way and look at Norton, sometimes they do target Norton more because he's got a better matchup. But Darcy, I just love him. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but he's just a gun. So, also there's some the Dons. I noticed they put Archie Roberts back into that defensive ball user role last week, and he had his 25. He had 28 the week before. And the Dogs, the ball's going to be down there a ton. He should get kick-outs. So I'd be happy to have a look at him as well, mate.
Okay, Archie Roberts' disposals as well. Something for the Bombers fans to follow. All right, the last game of the round is, of course, the Easter Monday clash. We are a long way out. These two teams, the Hawthorn lineup, the team should be pretty set. It's been set. Apart from Will Day, there's very few on the injury list. They might make a small tweak if a Huswaite or something came in. There's not going to be a major change in the Hawthorn team. Geelong's been a little bit different, so selection table for Geelong could be a bit different. So we don't know everything about this matchup, and it is early and more information will come out. But what do we know at this stage, Harro? What are the definitives? Nearly a week out. It's a Wednesday. It's next Monday.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, I sort of think both sides, they were poor in their first game of the season, and then after that, both reverted back to being like where we expect them to be, basically, that top 6 type area. Both sides, for whatever reason, failed to show up in their first game, and then they've looked really good since. The Cats, obviously, the last time these two sides met was in that final, wasn't it? When Dangerfield played just a game out of the blue and pretty much toppled Hawthorn on his own that night. Really, that's the way I saw it at the time. But he's not going to be there this week. And also, his little mate Stengel, he also won't be there this week. And so maybe Hawthorn come in just a little bit stronger as in compared to their last meeting, which Geelong did hold sway in that. So I really get this game back to being a pretty level game. And given that Hawthorn are what are they, $1.65, something like that, I don't really have a big difference with the market in there. So I do like the over total points, Wally. It's around 180. Correct me if it's moved, but I don't mind that. Both sides have been happy to score and allow a bit of scoring this year. Take that with what you will. I think that should go.
It's
over
183 now, Harro, the line, just as we're going live.
Started to move up. Yeah.
Are you comfortable at 183, or is that getting a bit high?
I think it still goes over, but I am being a little bit wary of these high lines. But, I still think it'll go over that. We know, I think, we don't have to wait for teams to figure out that Mullen is going to probably play a wizard, right? You'd have to think so, wouldn't you?
So. Yeah.
And he kept Rankin to 7 touches on the weekend. Now, I had a look, and there is a market for the Wizard, and his line set at 15.5. And he will not get 16 disposals with Mullen playing on him. He's been getting 16 disposals with no attention. And so I like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they let Newcomb off altogether. They might still run an Atkins or something around with him, but his line is only 22.5, and I feel like that's probably on the low side for a Newcomb, mate. But I think this is a game, Wally, that we will, after teams are out and we've had a bit of a better look at it, that we might revert back to and put something out on the Monday for the punters.
Right. Yep, definitely. All right, mate, we've a wrap of the 8 games. You've been great as always. We're going to need your best bet before we go, though, Harro.
All right, mate. Well, there's a few good ones here. But I wanted to make it a team bet this week after having a few goes at the total points. And I'm going to go back to my old favourite, the Swannies, to beat West Coast by over that 26.5 margin, mate.
Love it. There you go. All right. That's it from us for another week. We will be back next week. Next week's very special. It is the Gather Round episode. We love Gather Round. It's going to be huge. We've got all 18 teams playing, which is great. Yes, they're not the most tantalising matchups, but that doesn't mean they're not great betting matchups. So hopefully we find some gold for you there. Harro, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy Easter. Enjoy the fish on Good Friday and steak for the rest of the weekend. Imagine what you can be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.